All right, thanks everyone for joining us. Welcome to the University of St. Thomas Tommies in 20. Today we're going to be focusing on the college application. Before we get started today, I just want to go over a couple housekeeping notes. In this webinar format that we're on, you are muted, your camera is off, no one can see you. It's likely at this point you have been a part of some sort of a webinar, so you maybe knew that already. Or maybe you've joined us already in the past. If so, welcome back. Just wanted to let everybody know that we do have a Q&A feature and a chat feature going throughout this webinar. We don't have time today to run through many questions or any questions, but if you drop any questions in the Q&A and leave your name there, we will have someone who's following up with you after this event. Before we get started with any sort of information, I just would like to read our land acknowledgement. We read our land acknowledgement before all of our events here at the University of St. Thomas. The University of St. Thomas occupies the ancestral and current homelands of the Dakota people, Minnesota-Makoche. We also recognize the Ojibwe and Ho-Chunk, whose lands were colonized by the United States and are currently occupied by the state of Minnesota. We condemn the tools of settler colonialism, including genocide and forced assimilation, undertaken in the name of white supremacy that created structures of injustice and inequity that continue to oppress and marginalize Indigenous and underrepresented peoples. We work towards the process of decolonizing minds and educating students to be morally responsible leaders. We commit to the work of truth-telling and relationship building as we seek new pathways forward as relatives in the University of St. Thomas community, the Indigenous communities, and those who traverse multiple communities. So just to kick things off, we're going to do quick introductions. So my name is Chris Peterson. I'm an admissions counselor here at the University of St. Thomas. I'm originally from Lakeville, Minnesota, so not too far away from campus. And I graduated from St. Thomas in 2017. As a student here, I studied marketing. I got a minor in psychology, was part of the track team, was in a few different clubs and organizations, and I worked 3 jobs on campus. So I was really involved, absolutely loved my 4 years here. Obviously, I loved it so much. I'm still here a few years later. And Bree, would you want to just introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna McCauley. I am originally from a very, very small town of Spring Valley, Minnesota. It's about 2 hours south of campus, very close to the Iowa border. I came up to the Twin Cities and attended college at the University of Minnesota and graduated there in 2017 also. And then found my way over to St. Thomas here this last year. I get to work with students from a couple local schools here in the Twin Cities, as well as Iowa, South Dakota, Nebraska, Missouri, and basically all the way down to Texas. So I'm really fortunate to get to work with so many different students. So welcome, everyone.
Bree, thank you for reminding me. I work with students coming from the Northwest Metro of the Twin Cities, Richfield and Bloomington school districts, and then the entirety of the Rocky Mountain region of the US. I think we've got a couple of folks from Colorado on here today. So hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Just want to run through quickly the agenda for today. We've got 4 main areas that we're going to cover in our presentation. The first of which being our admissions timeline, looking at some of the dates and everything there, the application and what your different options are with the application, test scores, talking a little bit about that, and then just giving you a quick overview of how the application review process works here at St. Thomas. So Bree, you want to get us kicked off with talking about the timeline?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so first off, I just want to say you are all doing awesome by being here today and kind of getting an early start and starting to think about your application when you're applying, because that's kind of your first step in thinking about this whole entire admissions process. So essentially, you have a couple different options as far as the timelines go. If you choose to apply sooner rather than later, which is always what I recommend students do, just to make sure you've got plenty of time, you can kind of weigh your options and take a look at everything. You'll choose to apply early action. What that means is that you're submitting all of your application materials to us by November 1st. So you've still got plenty of time to do that. And then you'll get your admissions decision and your merit award by December 15th. No matter which way that you go, your deposit and your confirmation date will stay the same of May 1st. So I know some schools kind of have a weird thing where if you're applying early action, it means that you're committed to attending that university. So I want you all to know that's not what we do here at St. Thomas. If you apply early action versus regular decision, you still have the choice of whether or not you're going to attend our institution. So don't feel like you're locked in if you choose one route versus the other. Again, I always recommend that you can apply earlier if you're able to, just to give you more time. If that timeline does not work for you though, you can still apply regular decision, which just means that you're applying and getting all your materials to us by January 15th rather than November 1st. You're still going to get your admissions decision and your merit award about a month later by February 15th, and that still leaves you a couple of months to make your final decision by that May 1st deadline. So either way is perfectly fine with us. Of course, the earlier the better. Again, to give you more time, I can't stress that enough. Don't wait till the last minute. I know it seems really early to be thinking about applying right now. And I know Chris will probably talk about when can I actually start applying in just a few slides here. But just know that you're doing everything right by being here and starting to think about those two different timelines. However you want to apply, whichever timeline you want to go with is perfectly fine with us. And one other thing just to note, if you miss that regular decision deadline of January 15th, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't apply. We just go to a rolling admission basis. So if we have space to accept you after that deadline, then we will. But depending on how the year goes, it may kind of look a little bit different. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then the application itself. So basically you have two different options and I'll explain them each, but the first is the St. Thomas application directly on our website, and the other is the common application. So I'll go into each a little bit more in detail. The first, like I said, the St. Thomas application is available directly on our website, and it's actually already open for fall of 2022. So all that you have to do is go directly onto our website. It's very easy to find. Click the apply button, and you've got it right there. It's free to do on our website. So that's always a nice perk there that you don't have to worry about paying any application fees. Another option, I know Chris will talk about test scores, but you have the option to kind of report your test scores on your own here. So if you want to report them as you're going through your application and submit an official test score later, you can do that. So don't feel like you have to have those in hand at that exact same time or send those to us right away. And as I mentioned, that application is available right now. So if you're feeling ready and you've got a busy fall coming up, and I know high school is going to be starting back up again and senior year and all that good stuff. If you're feeling ready and you want to apply right now, you can absolutely do that by going online to our website. Another option that I always recommend for students, if you're thinking of applying for maybe 4 or 5 or more schools and they all accept the common application, I would recommend that you use this. And for those of you who are not familiar with what the Common App is, it's essentially one application that you can complete online, and then you can send it to as many different schools who accept the Common App, as many as you would like. So we have over like 900 different colleges and universities that will accept the Common Application. So make sure you check with your schools. It could save you a lot of time as you're going through the application processes. One thing that I thought for some odd reason when I was applying to colleges, I had in my mind that if I applied directly through the school's website versus the Common App, it would make my application better. So I want you all to know that that is absolutely not the case here. However you want to apply, whether it's through the Common App or directly on our website, is perfect. So just do whatever works best for you and whatever you think seems to make the most sense. Again, you can self-report your test scores on the Common App. And then this one will be available in just a couple of weeks on August 1st. So those are kind of your two different options that you'll kind of want to decide. So make sure that you're thinking about, like my previous slide, your timeline and which route you want to do and kind of how soon you're looking to get your application completed, and then decide on which version of the application you'd like to do directly on our website or through the Common App. Again, either options are just fine. And if you're not sure which one works for you, you can always reach out to us too, and we will help you figure out what works best.
All right, and then talking a little bit about test scores. Bree mentioned that I was going to be touching on this a little bit. So there's two different options when you're applying to St. Thomas as to what you're going to do with your test scores. St. Thomas is a test optional institution, so we are no longer requiring an ACT or an SAT test score with your application. We made the decision to go test optional prior to the pandemic starting. A lot of schools have gone test optional in response to the pandemic and testing sites not being available. But we made the decision prior that we were going to do that. And so we are continuing to be a test optional institution moving forward. It's a good thing to look at and see, what the different schools you're applying to are going to be doing with their test score policy. And so then just you have a couple options then. So if the school is test optional, you've got a couple different things that you can choose to do. You can submit your test scores. And so if you decide to submit your test scores and have them be included as part of your application, then when we're reviewing applications, we will look at those and it will be a factor in your decision. Like Bree mentioned, you can self-report those on the application. So we're not going to require you to send in official test scores, early in the year. That costs money. And if you're sending it to a bunch of schools, that the costs can kind of add up a little bit. So we don't require that. We allow you to self-report on our application or on the Common App. And that'll work just fine for us getting through the process. If you do decide to submit your test scores and have those as part of your application, and you decide to attend St. Thomas, then we'll just have you send the official version of those to us a little bit later in the year if once you make that decision. If you decide not to submit test scores, that's okay too. We went test optional for a multitude of reasons, and we know that test scores aren't always the best predictor of a student's success in college. That the GPA and your high school record is a lot more telling there. And so if you feel like your test scores are not an accurate representation of who you are as a student, then we don't need those. We don't need you to send those. We have found ways to review an application without a test score. And we've done a really good job of that. We had our first year of being a test optional institution this past year, and it worked really great. So don't feel like if you're not submitting test scores, we're going to look at that negatively or assume that you didn't have a great score on it. It really makes no difference to us. We've gotten very good at reviewing applications without a test score, so we're not going to think negatively of it. It just means we don't have one to look at. And so if you have questions about whether you should submit your test score or not submit it, just reach out to us. We will be really transparent with you. We'll give you the best guidance that we can. And I would suggest that you do that with all the schools that you're applying to. Take a look at what their policy is. If they are test optional, check in with them, say, hey, this is what my score is, should I send it in? And so that's my little bit of a recommendation on the whole test score piece of things. And then giving a brief overview of the application review process. So every school is going to do this a little bit differently. I'm just going to walk through how we do things here at St. Thomas. And just so you know that once you submit your application, this is what's going to be happening on our end. So you're going to go through and you're going to submit your application. So it's either our application or the Common App. You'll have made that decision of whether you're going to include your test score or not. And then to complete your application, we're just going to need your official high school transcript to be sent to us. So for the transcript to be considered official, it just needs to be sent by your high school. So a lot of high schools have a system where you contact your counselor, whether that's in your college and career center, or maybe it's a dean or some form of a school counselor. You reach out to them, say, hey, I want my transcripts to be sent to St. Thomas or whatever schools you're applying to. And then they're able to send that over to us electronically. We just have to have it sent by them for it to be considered official. So it doesn't work if you email it to us or if a parent emails it to us. It has to come from your high school. So once we have all of those things, your application is complete. And so we're going to be looking at the transcript. If you can include your standardized test score, we'll look at that. The other things we're going to look at are going to be your essay and letters of recommendation if you include those. St. Thomas does not require you to submit an essay or any letters of recommendation. I always encourage submitting those, especially the essay. It just makes the application a bit more human, and we're able to hear your voice through your writing. So we're going to look at all of those different things. And then the first review of the application is done by your admissions counselor. So someone like me or Bree. So everybody who's joining us from Colorado, I'll be the person who's reviewing your application. I'm going to be looking at the transcripts, looking at test scores if you submit them. We do read all of the essays and all of the letters of recommendation that come in. And what the people in Bree and my position are doing is we're just going through taking notes on everything that you include, all the information you share with us, and then we make a recommendation and pass it on to our admissions committee. So that's the second round of the review process. So our admissions committee is made up of our director of admissions and then a couple of associate directors. And so they go through and they do the final review and make final decisions there. They don't trust Bree and I to do that quite yet, maybe someday. But so what Bree and I and the folks in our position do is we're kind of the middle person between you and the committee. If the committee has questions about anything on your application, they'll ask us and then we'll reach out to you and then you give us a little bit of context and then we pass it on to them and they can make their decision. We're also here just to be an advocate for our students. And so if there's any, anything that happened in high school that maybe caused your grades to dip for a semester or anything along those lines, share that with us. It can sometimes feel like you should hide those things or not address them. But if you address them and you talk to us about it, give us the context, then we can go and share that with our admissions committee. And sometimes the explanation can help them say, okay, yep, we understand where that could have happened. We'll admit them even if their grades were maybe a little bit lower for a semester or so. So just communicating with your admissions counselor can be very helpful when going through the admissions process because we're involved in it and we're there to go to bat for you when there's questions. So I just always like to share a little bit about that, with how we do things here at St. Thomas. Every school is going to do it a little bit differently, but now when you submit your application, you kind of know what the process is going to be once it gets here. If you have put any questions in the Q&A so far and you've left your name and everything in there, we will have someone reaching out to you, like I mentioned at the top of the presentation. But otherwise, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to your admissions counselor. Maybe that's me, maybe it's Bree, maybe it's someone else in our team. Or you can reach us at admissions@stthomas.edu. And for our international students that are joining us, feel free to email international@stthomas.edu. We have an international admissions office that is here and ready to help you through the process because it looks maybe a little bit different than what we're going to see for our domestic students. So feel free to reach out to them. And I think they're actually going to be reaching out to you sometime in the next couple of days with just a little bit of follow-up. But we really appreciate you all taking the time to join us for this quick webinar. We do have another few of these coming up throughout the summer. The next one is focused on the college essay. So please join us for that. The college essay is a very important piece to a lot of students' applications. And so we've got some tips and tricks for you there. So join us for that. We'd also love to have you come and visit campus sometime. Our campus is open for visits. We're doing visits, every day, Monday through Friday. We have some events going on campus. So feel free to check out our different visit options on our website. But thank you for taking the time this afternoon to join us here. And if there's people that are trying to toss some questions in the Q&A, I will leave this webinar going for another minute or so. So if you got questions, just toss those in the Q&A really quick. But thank you all for joining us and have a great rest of your evening.